Hello everybody, Slickframe James here. Today we're going to be doing a slightly different kind of video. I was recently... Oh. My dog walked inside the sound booth and kicked the microphone stand. Screw it, I'm leaving that in. I have a special guest with me today. Doggy!
Oh, dog, Butterpop. Oh, get out of here. Oh, so annoying.
I have my friend...
Get out of here, Butterpop, we're recording!
My friend Jason is here today. How you doing today, Jason?
Hey, I'm doing well. It's a nice night over here. Just had a full work day at the bank. And, yeah, I'm just happy to be here.
Yeah, dude. I was recently playing through The Legend of Zelda, Link to the... A Link to the Past, what am I saying? It's late, so I'm a little groggy. I may have some brain farts here. I decided to play Link's Awakening, and I realized, I feel like doing something a little different for the channel today. I thought it might be fun to make a discussion video, just sort of a podcast-y type of video to talk about Zelda games. I know this is mostly a Mario-themed channel, but I figured I wanted to talk about Zelda, and I figured might as well have a guest on, and that would be Jason, DoJayMi.
Hi, it's me, DoJayMi, one of the artists here on the show.
Yeah, he is, for those of you who don't know, actually, I did do an interview video with him earlier this year. Link here if you want to see it. He is, let's see, he's done a lot of artwork for Slickframe, and now he's moving on to working on some other characters. Do you want to say who those characters are? One or two characters?
I mean, are you okay with me sharing? Is this, like, not breaking any secrets or anything?
You know what? On second thought, let's keep it under wraps for now. But they might be revealed sometime soon. But for now, yeah, let's keep it a secret. But yeah,
sorry to spoil you guys. Or I should say tease you guys.
Yeah, tease is the right word. But yeah, so this is the kind of video that would be best. There's not going to be a lot of cool visuals to look at in this video. If anything, this might be a good video to just listen to. Like if you're on a road trip or doing chores or at work, this would be the kind of video to just listen to. We're just going to be chatting about The Legend of Zelda. And the reason I brought Jason here to talk about Zelda with me is because, well, he and we have very differing tastes when it comes to Zelda games. Would you say that?
That's putting it lightly.
So I thought it'd be fascinating to bring him on here. I think our different tastes with the Zelda series is very interesting. The thing that I love about the Zelda series, if you really think about it, there's such a variety of games. It seems like almost every game they try something new and different. So somebody could have their own top 5 favorite Zelda games. You talk to somebody else and their top 5 list could be completely different because the games can be so different.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Zelda series is so diverse and so iconic, you can't help but, have people with different tastes because each game means something different to them.
Oh, you know what? I completely forgot. I should show off some artwork that Jason has made for those of you who are interested. Where can people find you if they're interested in seeing your artwork?
So if you're interested in seeing my artwork, I draw the occasional fan art, but I mostly draw original characters. And it's because of said fan art that I actually got brought onto the show, actually. I'll show you up here. It's these pictures of the Mario characters that I've done that, kind of impressed James. And yeah, he brought me onto the show. I also design original characters, and I also do commissions. If you guys want to, pass me a few bucks, and I'll draw something for you. So you can find me on DeviantArt on DoJayMi, and I also post to Twitter regularly as @DoJayMi.
All right, cool. Yeah, no, definitely, guys, go check him out, and please commission him if you're interested. He does make some pretty good stuff.
I've been here this long.
Yes, you have. You're the second artist that I brought on to work on my channel. You're one of the
I have seniority.
So I guess I'll let you go first with this. So, what was your introduction to the Zelda series, and in I don't know, a minute or two? Can you sum up your overall well, man, I don't know how much you can sum up
There's
Like,
really
it's such
too
a big
much.
series. Yeah,
There's really too much. But my first experience was my birthday when I was 4 years old. I got The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time for the Nintendo 64. It was honestly one of the best games that I remember getting, because just exploring the lot of Hyrule and experiencing the story, it was something magical. And to this day, I still love that game so much.
And my intro is pretty similar too. My first two games were Link's Awakening Deluxe for the Game Boy Color, and also Ocarina of Time for the N64.
By the way, side note, Ocarina and Ocarina are technically both acceptable pronunciations, but I prefer Ocarina since it ties back to the original not Latin, Italian root word for that name.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah, I looked it up. It was something that really drove me crazy back in the day.
Yeah, there's like Deku, Deku, Gerudo.
Actually, Gerudo is correct.
Is that how they pronounce it in Breath of the Wild? Because I feel like
Yes.
that's probably... Okay.
Yeah, it's Gerudo, not Gerudo. And they also pronounce it that way in Hyrule Warriors as well. Even though that game technically isn't canon, it's still something. Which means it's Fi, not Fee.
Yeah, I think I always said Fee when I played Skyward Sword, but then apparently Phi is the right way to say it, because
because she's named after a Greek numeral, which is Phi.
Okay.
Although it's spelled Phi if you're trying to Romanize it. Dang,
look at you! You have all the Zelda trivia.
I spend a lot of time learning basically useless information.
So yeah, you and I have been playing Zelda games for a long time. My history with the Zelda series is a little complicated, I suppose, in that my opinions on the games are very all over the place. I guess I'll start off by talking about my favorite and least favorite games. Pretty much, I thought about this recently. I have pretty much 4 different categories for Zelda games when ranking them from least favorite to favorite.
Do tell.
The lowest. So like the lowest rank would be games that I don't think there are any Zelda games I legit hate or actively dislike. There are just some that I just don't get into as much. And okay, there are gonna be some real hot takes in this video. Are you ready for this one? You already know this, Jason, but I'm not a huge fan of the N64 Zelda games.
And you are very welcome to be wrong.
And I'm not a huge fan of Majora's Mask. I never got it when it first came out. I did end up renting it on 3DS. And I played through it all the way to the end, but I had to force myself through it. I respect a lot about the game. I think a lot of the ideas are really cool. The main concept is genius. I really respect a lot of it. I just don't enjoy that world very much for some reason.
Well,
So
being fair, you didn't get to experience the original Nintendo 64 because they changed a lot of the gameplay and the mechanics in the 3DS remake.
Well, I actually have played a bit of the N64 game because I got it for Christmas, I think when I was in middle school or high school, and I gave it a try, and I just could not get into it. Like, even as a little kid, like, I tried getting into Ocarina of Time, and I told some friends, I was like, I don't really dig this. And they're like, what? But this is like the best game ever. What are you talking about? So I was like, I felt like an outcast in that. Like, eventually I got more into Ocarina as I got older. But so the first category belongs to Majora's Mask and maybe a few other games. Then the category above that would be games that I have mixed thoughts on. Games that there are things that I like about them or things that I don't like about them. Games that I think, I don't know, games that are kind of in the mid-range, like maybe Twilight Princess and Skyward Sword.
So you feel more ambivalent towards them?
Yeah, in that, like, there are things that I like about them, things that I don't, like, games that, I don't dislike, but games that I don't quite love. Then above that, there are games that I like Minish Cap, maybe the Link's Awakening Switch remake I'd probably put in that category too, or maybe the top category, I don't know. But yeah, then there's a category of ones that I like, and then at the very top there are the two that I absolutely love, being Breath of the Wild and Wind Waker HD. And you may notice that they're both very colorful incredibly bright and colorful Zelda games, because I guess that's just what I'm into.
Hey, bright and colorful isn't bad, you know?
No, not at all. That's just what draws me in, I suppose. So yeah, that's a basic summary without getting too deep into it. I guess we'll get further into it as we go on. But yeah, what about you? Like, what are some of your favorite and least favorite Zelda games?
So I'm going to tell you guys right off the bat, I don't care that much for the top-down Zelda games where it's like more 2D-ish.
Yeah, the
or 2.5D, you know, stuff like you know, the original Zelda or you know, Link Between Worlds. I actually liked A Link to the Past. That was fun. And I have yet to play the Minish Cap, but I do have it. So I do have it now. So I'm gonna check that out.
Oh, that was one of my favorites as a kid. I'm a weirdo. I like Minish Cap more than Ocarina and Majora's Mask.
Actually, like Minish Cap is one of those interesting ones where you basically like it does have its fans, but apparently not enough people have played it.
I mean, it was on Game Boy Advance. I guess I don't know if that's a good reason for not as many people to have played it. I mean, I think
I don't know. It's one of those games where it's definitely underrated.
I mean, it came out in like 2004, I believe. So this was around the time when 3D Zelda was in full swing and like the hot new thing still. So
well, not to mention this was also the time period where Nintendo just kept using the Toon Link aesthetic. Like, they used the Toon Link aesthetic for everything, and not everybody liked that.
I mean, you can't really tell when you play the game itself, but yeah, like in official artwork for the game, it's Toon Link. But in the actual game itself, it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, it's more closer to the Four Swords games because it serves as like a prequel to it.
Yeah. Speaking of Four Swords, I've never really gotten into those. Like that game and Triforce. I played Triforce Heroes when it came out. Did you play that one?
No, that's one I kind of slept on.
Yeah, it's okay. The online play, it was like really laggy for me, and it was cool when it worked. Like, it was satisfying to play with strangers and be like, yeah, we did it, we worked together, but I can't say it's a great Zelda game, no.
Yeah, I can't really say much for that myself.
So going back to, like, your least favorite Zelda game, so you're not a fan of the classic 2D ones, huh?
Yeah, I don't really care for them, or at the very least, I don't care for the original Zelda, and by the way, I did play it. It's very much a slog to get through.
Yeah, the two NES ones, not my cup of tea either.
Actually, I ended up enjoying The Adventure of Link more than the original Zelda, surprisingly enough.
Wow, see that's the thing about the Zelda series. There are so many, like, differing opinions. It's like, every time you talk to somebody new, like, it's nobody's ever going to have the same opinions with this series, and I think that's fascinating. It's always fun to talk about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I see that. I do like that. You know, Nintendo did try to experiment with this one, and it was something that ended up. Well, I understand it was a failure, and even Miyamoto considers it.
Really?
But that being said, there was actually a lot from it that actually inspired Ocarina of Time itself. So it was fascinating to take a look at the Adventure of Link's roots and, you know, just see what inspired that timeless classic that I grew up with.
The first time I was exposed to anything to do with Zelda 2 was the stage from Super Smash Bros. Melee, Hyrule Temple. Like, I had no idea
because it had the temple music.
Yeah, like I thought that song was, when I first heard the version from the original game, I was like, oh, that song is from an original game. Wow. It was kind of a surreal moment for me.
Not to mention, like, just a lot of the Adventure of Link's, moveset inspired Link's moveset in Smash Bros. Yeah,
it's really cool, like, when you realize that. It's like, oh, that, like, down A when you, like, jump in the air and you stab downward. That's taken right from it.
Yep. So yeah, even though it had its pitfalls, Zelda 2 was actually a lot more influential than people give it credit for.
So what about the games that you think are kind of just okay-ish, or maybe you like a little bit more than those?
So going back to So I thought A Link Between Worlds was okay, but honestly, I really do not like the direction that Nintendo's currently taking with Zelda, where they're doing non-linear stories, because honestly, I find that to be more restricting than liberating.
See, it's ironic that you say that, because you think like an open world Zelda game would be less restricting. Like,
yeah,
I think a lot of people would say that.
It's almost like the freedom denies the right to choose, you know?
How so?
Well, it's so ironic, because having that freedom sort of takes away what made the Zelda stories so good in the first place. Yeah, I know it follows a similar pattern of Ganondorf, of like big threat kidnaps princess and Link goes to save her, but it's a lot more than that. It's what they did differently between each different game that made each one special, you know? You got to meet like unique characters, you got to meet characters that had lives, personalities, and just some of them had really good designs too.
Oh, absolutely.
And in Breath of the Wild, a lot of that is taken away. It's stripped down to basically a wasteland of sorts.
Yeah,
and like the only nuggets of story and characters and memorable moments are in those small oases that you find in the wilderness.
Oases. Like,
do you know what an oasis is?
Yeah, I know what an oasis is, but
it's a metaphor. I'm referring to like each divine beast is like an oasis in a desert full of nothing.
Oh, okay. I thought you were being literal. I was like, were there oases in that? I mean, there's probably one in Gerudo Desert.
Well, I mean, like Gerudo Village was just built around an oasis, basically.
But so yeah, like part of one thing that you and I like, I feel like you and I bring this up every now and then. Whenever we bring up Zelda, like I will always bring up my love for Breath of the Wild, and you will like say something like Skyward Sword is better. Like I feel like that's a point you and I always bring up, and I think it's funny. I think
it's funny too, but honestly, like I call me stubborn, call me old-fashioned, but I like a proper Zelda game with A, some connection to Ganondorf, and B, a proper storyline. And Skyward Sword has that in spades.
Yeah, I mean,
they could have done a little better with the motion control, but that was the gimmick Nintendo was going with at the time, so I guess it's sort of okay.
So where does Skyward Sword rank for you?
Let's see. Skyward Sword is definitely in my top 10, but not my top 5.
So then, I guess to complete, your thoughts on the overall series, like, so, which games would you say are your all-time faves? Like, which ones are in your top 5?
Okay, top 5 in no particular order: Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, Wind Waker, Twilight Princess, and let's see. I got 4. Trying to think of which one I enjoyed.
Link's Awakening?
Oh yeah, Link's Awakening. That would be a good one.
Yeah, would you say that one's your favorite 2D Zelda?
Definitely, it's definitely a hard pick between Link's Awakening and A Link to the Past, because A Link to the Past is bigger, and Link's Awakening could have been bigger, but it was restricted by being on a Game Boy at the time. But overall, I think I like the characters in Link's Awakening better.
I actually, so because I played the Switch remake recently, and this was my second time playing it all the way through. I haven't played it since it first came out. I actually enjoyed it a lot more this second time around. Yeah, I gotta say, I really had a great time with it this time. I actually ran a poll on my Twitter yesterday, and only 28 people voted, so that's not a lot of people, but I asked, like, what is your favorite version of Link's Awakening? The original, the deluxe Game Boy Color version, or the Switch remake? And overwhelmingly, the Switch remake got the most votes, but I'm sure if more people voted, there would have been way more people voting for the originals, because some people think that the controls are better in the original, despite the lack of buttons.
Yeah, I do see where they're coming from, but I can't deny the quality of life improvements for the Switch was pretty good. That being said, though, That being said, though, I feel like they could have done more with it. Like, it felt very bare bones, but to me, aside from, the animation and of course, the game itself, like, they just did very little to improve it, besides the quality of life improvements.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, for me, it's the only way I'll play Link's Awakening these days, because I just cannot stand, like, playing the original and having to go to the pause menu, like, every 5 seconds to switch out a sword for my Rock's Feather.
Yeah, I understand where you'd go. I understand how you'd feel about that. I didn't like that part either.
You know what? Actually, on a side note, I want to share a funny story. So my experience with Link's Awakening is kind of an odd one. So I had it for Game Boy Color as a kid, and I never beat it. Ever. I got stuck when I was like 4 or 5 when I played it.
Let me guess, the raccoon in the forest?
Yeah, I think I've told you this. But yeah, the raccoon in the forest, who turns out to be Terran, I could not figure out for the life of me that you had to sprinkle the dust on him so you could continue. So because of that, I spent a lot of time just running around in circles in Mabe Village. Or Mabe, is that how you say it? Mabe?
I
think it's Mabe. I don't think it's Mabe.
Mabe Village?
Yeah, I don't think it's Mabe Village. I'm pretty sure it's Mabe. So yeah, like I kept hearing people say, yeah, Link's Awakening is great. So I was kind of robbed of that experience because of my stupidity at that age. So in a way, I was...
being fair, a lot of kids could not figure that part out.
Well, maybe I'm being hard. Maybe stupid is a little too harsh of a word. But yeah, so in a way, I was kind of in the target audience to play the remake on Switch because it's like, whoa, it's actually a Zelda game I've never experienced. Well, I've kind of experienced it, so it's familiar and new.
Yeah, I hope the Oracle games get the same treatment.
Yeah, dude. I really hope so, too. I will say, though, one issue I have with the remake is that the way that it controls with 8-point directions, it feels more... Like, do you like the controls, the movement in the old one better?
I will say the movement in the old one, Link definitely feels like he moves a lot more freely. He's very slow in the remake.
Yeah, I mean, he's not super fast in the original either. Like, but
he feels much more sluggish here.
I suppose so. Like, I felt that way too. I don't know if it's... Maybe if you compare the games side by side, maybe the speed is more similar than we realize, but I don't know. Maybe he definitely does feel slow in this game. But having the Pegasus boots like locked to your L button is like, oh.
Yeah, that is so very, very helpful.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so you played through the remake all the way through?
Yep, I beat it, also without dying, which means I got the true ending.
Yeah, I died like 6 times when I first played it, so I had to look up the bonus ending on YouTube. By the way, we should probably not get too big into any story spoilers for any of the games, just to be safe.
Yeah, you never know who hasn't played it yet.
That being said, recently, you told me that you prefer Link's Awakening over Breath of the Wild, and it's all because of the story.
Yeah, like, honestly, that's just one of the reasons I play the Zelda games in the first place, because I want to see the story, I want to see the characters, I want to see how each Link is different.
Yeah, I can definitely tell, like, story is very important to you with Zelda games. Like, the story is important to me, but I will always prioritize... Gameplay is always the most important thing to me, which is part of why I love Breath of the Wild so much. I think it's just the most refined entry. Meanwhile, it's, like, probably... in your bottom 10 or bottom 5?
Yeah, definitely.
I wonder how many nice things I can get you to say about Breath of the Wild.
See, here's the thing. When Breath of the Wild actually cares about its story, it's good. It has very well developed very well developed cultures within it, and of course a lot of the champions are, of course, very memorable. I mean, who could forget the great Daruk or Mipha, or of course Urbosa and Revali.
You said Revali last. Revali's the best. You must say his name first. I have an amiibo of a Revali. That's how much I love him.
Actually, Daruk is my favorite.
Oh yeah.
I can't help it. I like guys with a lot of gusto. There we go.
Yeah, I mean, Rivali is like, he's such a jerk, but I don't know why. Like, there's some jerk characters that really get under my skin, but something about Rivali, like...
There's definitely there's definitely something charming about Rivali, in the fact that he's basically trying so hard to be the best, you know, and he's very well aware of his own weakness and his some of his failings, you know? But, you know, he's basically had his ego stoked by the fact that, oh, he's the best archer in all of the Rito. Oh, he's the only one that can create a gust under himself so he can fly up really quick. Apparently, if you look at his diary in Rito Village, as it turns out, he might have actually messed up in front of Link, and that would have humiliated him.
All right, well, let's not talk too much more about any of the diary entries because we don't want to spoil it for anybody.
Oh, that's fair. Sorry. Sorry, guys.
That's okay. That's not like super bad. That's
to be fair, there's not much. To be fair, there's not much to spoil about Breath of the Wild.
But yeah, so I guess getting back to like bringing up Skyward Sword and Breath of the Wild, I for those of you who are fans of Ask Mario, I'd be surprised if you're a fan of Ask Mario. If you're not a fan of Ask Mario and you're listening to this.
Yeah, guys, we'd be surprised if you're a fan of this loser.
So I like in the April Fool's episode of Ask Mario, like I made a joke where I say that I quote unquote fired you all because you don't like Zelda Breath of the Wild.
I know, and honestly, the bit where you were mimicking me made me laugh so hard when you showed us the preview.
Oh I don't like my Zelda games to be non-linear. I'm glad you could take that well, by the way.
It was like listening to a mirror.
But yeah, no, it's funny because Breath of the Wild, like, to me, it seems like to be the most popular Zelda game right now because of how much it revamped. To me, it almost feels like a reboot.
Yeah, that's what some of my other friends said too, and that's one of the reasons it irks me so much.
It just, like, I love, even though, like, I do agree that, and Luigi was right, by the way.
Didn't you say that you thought the story could have been better?
Without spoiling anything, I do think the ending is a bit, I feel like the final boss, like, I feel like could have been better, and I feel like the final cutscene, even with the bonus cutscene you unlock, I feel like that could have been better. Like, I really love the cutscenes in Breath of the Wild, even though the story as a whole isn't as satisfying as I'd hope. I still do think the cutscenes are good, even if the voice acting is not always the best.
Princess Zelda is a great example of a bad voice actor.
Well,
okay,
what's her voice actress's name?
I don't remember her name. I just feel like she could have done a more authentic British accent because it feels so forced.
I don't think she did a bad job. There were some lines like...
See, yeah, it's not that she did a bad job. It's just that, like, the bit where Zelda is crying in the rain, for example, that felt so disingenuous. Like, it didn't feel right. Because in the Japanese version, she actually wails. Like, she's actually seen her entire world fall apart.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I have heard the Japanese audio for that part, and I will say the acting in that is definitely better. But maybe in the sequel, the voice actors they get will do a better job. But there are other, like, I think the guy who voiced Rivali did a pretty good job.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not dunking on English voice acting in general. I just feel like the direction and casting could have been a little better.
Like Urbosa's voice sounded maybe a little robotic, but
I don't think so, because I think Urbosa's voice sounded pretty good.
Maybe I need to like listen to her audio again, because I don't think it was bad or anything. But then again, like, not a lot of Nintendo games have voice acting, so I suppose it's kind of new territory for some of the creators at Nintendo. But then you look at a game like Kid Icarus Uprising, and the voice acting in that game was pretty good, I'd say.
Oh, it was phenomenal.
Yeah, it was very... They weren't too serious.
Kid Icarus Uprising needs a sequel, dang it!
Oh yeah, I'd love it. A sequel with 2 sticks instead of a touchscreen.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, the touchscreen actually was pretty responsive. Gotta give Sakurai credit for that one.
Yeah, no, with the system's limitations, I think they did a pretty good job.
Yeah, that's a great example of making the most of the console you're playing on.
A quick side note, you have voiced Pit in a few fan-made videos.
Yeah, I did. My buddy Blue Paint C did his own version of like Hades Mist Guidance or Palutena's Guidance, whichever you prefer. And we even got some of the guys at Zelda Universe to notice that. So yeah, gotta give my buddy a plug.
Nice, that's really cool.
He's
yeah, I'll
also
plug the video right here.
Yeah, and he also started doing it his own thing where he's actually doing his Grunty's roster rhymes, where he takes all of the characters in Smash Ultimate and puts them on Spiral Mountain and has Grunty roast them.
Oh, I could have sworn I've seen one or two of those, but I think I need to see the rest of them.
Yeah, it's definitely a treat if you want to look at it.
I do love Banjo-Kazooie. That's one of my all-time favorite series.
Yeah, I think we're getting a little off topic, though.
So, like, I think talking about Breath of the Wild definitely highlights that, and also A Link Between Worlds, I think definitely highlights our differences in taste with the Zelda games. Now, I want to make it clear, I also really like good stories in Zelda games. I'd say my favorite story in the whole series is probably the one from Twilight Princess, because it has Midna, and she is probably
I will say that,
my favorite Zelda character.
Yeah, I will agree. Twilight Princess has one of the strongest stories in the entire series. And also, it was impressive by how dark it went, but that being said, Majora still went darker.
They're dark in different ways. I've talked to this with my friend Elliot multiple times. Like, they're both dark. It feels like Twilight Princess was trying to go for a more mature darkness, whereas Majora's Mask went for, like, scary, like, creepy darkness.
Yeah, it's very unnerving in a lot of aspects, and that's one of the reasons I like it so much. It's there's just so much potential for it. Like, I mean, not to mention there's just a lot of variety in the landscape, despite there only being like really 4 worlds, 5 if you're counting Clock Town. I mean, you get to go from like a swamp to a beach to like an actual kingdom of the undead, and it's very, it's a trip to go through.
Hey, speaking of location variety, that's actually one of my issues with Skyward Sword.
And I guess I can understand where you're coming from with that. There is an issue with location variety, but that being said, though, I mean, you got lush grassland, a Buddhist-inspired temple, a desert that has, fragments of time in it, and you also got the sky itself. Oh, and a volcano.
Honestly, if Skyward Sword had one more area, if they just added a snow level, I don't think I'd have any issue with it. My issue is just going from a volcano area to a desert. It's like, okay, one hot area to another hot area.
Yeah, I feel like they could have done a little bit more with that. That's a very fair criticism.
Yeah, I mean, though also. I mean,
like compared to the likes of Twilight Princess, there was a lot of variety in the Hyrule there.
Sure, but at the same time, like, I have issue. I've gone over this criticism in my head multiple times, because, like, in Ocarina of Time, they technically kind of do the same thing. It's like the first temple is a forest, then it's a volcano, then you go to a water area. I mean, you go inside the belly of a fish. Then you go back to the forest. Then you go to another volcano. Then you go to a water temple. So that right there, the first 3 themes are repeated.
I know, I understand that, but that being said, though, it also helps illustrate just how much these lands changed in the 7 years that Link's been asleep. So it's like so even though you're retreading familiar ground, you're getting to see it completely different, and in some cases, it's absolutely warped compared to what Link saw as a child. Like Zora's Domain, for example, is completely frozen over.
Yeah, so that thought never even occurred to me whenever I played Ocarina. When I play Ocarina, I don't think, oh, I'm going to the same locations. But in Skyward Sword, I do think that. It's like, I remember, like, in the last third of Skyward Sword, when this one character, not giving anything away, says, all right, you need to find these 3 things in order to get to the end of the game. Now, you must go back to those 3 areas. I'm like, I have to go back to those areas again? Why can't I go to a snow world? I don't know.
You really like snow worlds, apparently.
Oh yeah, dude, Snow World. The Snow World from Super Mario 3D World. The
Yeah, okay. I'll give you a credit for that one. Actually, speaking of snows, we actually just had a snowfall this week. It was a really big blizzard on Tuesday.
Yeah, look, you said getting to work this week was a pain for you.
Yeah, it was a bit of a pain, but now the snow's off the road, but we're expecting another one this Thursday.
So yeah, like Skyward Sword is the only Zelda game that I've ever had that issue with. But even then, like, I probably wouldn't mind as much if I know you and a lot of other people really like Skyward Sword. My issue with it is I think the world just feels kind of bland to me. And that probably sounds really harsh, but when I play through it, it's just like the new character designs are fine. Like, the Kikwis are cute looking. The Magmas are kind of cool. And then you got, those weird looking robot things. What are those called again?
I forget.
Yeah. But then, like, you get, like, the seahorse creatures that are in the water area of, what is it, Lake Floria?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, what are those things called? I
do not know what they are. I remember hearing theories about them, saying that they were like the ancestors to the Zoras or something, like they evolved into more humanoid shapes.
Yeah, it's like fun. Well, Skyward Sword takes place before A Link to the Past, I believe. So
actually, canonically speaking, A Link to the Past is further along in the timeline. Ocarina of Time was the first in the timeline before Skyward Sword came in.
Yeah, and who knows if they're gonna make another game that takes place before Skyward Sword. Like, they might do it someday, but then again, like, they made such a big deal about making Skyward Sword first canonically, so changing that. I don't know if they'll ever do that someday. We'll see.
I don't know. Maybe they could go into how the Goddess Sword was formed.
Maybe. Yeah, so let's see. What other issues do I have with Skyward Sword? I know, like, everybody on the internet has criticized Skyward Sword or praised it, because I feel like it's probably one of the most divisive Zelda games ever. Did you play the HD version?
I didn't play the HD version. I played the original on the Wii.
Because I bought the HD version and gave it a try, and I was like, okay, all right, this is kind of cool. But then I got bored, and I was like, I'm too used to how Breath of the Wild plays now. I don't feel like going back to this one. So I gave it to my cousin as an early Christmas present.
It's funny, because Breath of the Wild would not be the way it is without Skyward Sword treading the ground first.
That is true. No, you can definitely get a sense of Skyward Sword in Breath of the Wild. There are things that, like, I guess to segue into talking about the upcoming Zelda game, whatever it's called, but for now we call it Breath of the Wild 2.
Yeah, apparently the actual title will give away too much.
Yeah, I get the feeling like something's going on with Link's arm, and maybe something's going on with his face, because I don't think we saw his face in that most recent trailer, did we?
Yeah, I don't think we did.
Maybe Ganon possessed him or something.
Nah, there's something more to it, and honestly, there's a lot of theory videos about it. That's another thing. Zelda theories just chef's kiss. Some of them are really good, others not so much.
Yeah.
Like there's that one really edgy theory about Link being dead in Majora's Mask. Fact, it's not true. Been debunked officially.
Yeah, I don't think Link has ever been. I think Zelda's only been dead in one game, and that was Spirit Tracks.
Oh, on a technicality, yes.
Yeah, I've actually never. Speaking of, I've never played Spirit Tracks. Have you played the two DS Zeldas?
Yeah, I did.
I tried Phantom Hourglass, and I couldn't beat it because I got sick of the Temple of the Ocean King. I could never get through it.
You're not supposed to get through it in one go.
I know. You're supposed to keep coming back to it, and I just sucked at it. I kept getting stuck, so I just kept giving up.
Yeah, see, I have something called patience and good problem-solving skills, so...
Well, aren't you Mr. High and Mighty Zelda player? I guess I'm just a scrub lord compared to you, huh?
A Deku Scrub Lord.
Oh.
Hey.
But yeah, Spirit Tracks I've still wanted to try because like I don't dislike Phantom Hourglass. Like I was able to get used to the touch controls, and driving a train looks fun. And also I heard that the version of Zelda in that game, I heard she's like really well written.
Yeah, actually, she is well written throughout the story of Spirit Tracks. In fact, it's one of the only Zelda games where you actually play as Zelda. Granted,
yeah, that's
she's
really cool.
Granted, she's in a Phantom, but that's hardly like anything to complain about. Really, it's still Zelda.
I would make a Full Metal Alchemist joke, but I feel like I'm way behind on that, so I feel like that's probably a stale joke by this point.
I'm surprised you know what Full Metal Alchemist is.
Oh yeah, no, I know a few things about anime, not as much as you though.
Yes, I have no life.
But yeah, so Breath of the Wild 2, like, that new trailer that was revealed a month or two ago, the first thing I saw, like, one of the first things they show is Link falling out of the sky, and I gotta say, I feel like, you're gonna start in that game on the ground, probably in Hyrule Field, and then eventually you go up to the sky, and I feel like that's more exciting than what they did in Skyward Sword. Like, starting in the sky is cool, but then going down to the surface, it's like, all right, I mean...
Yeah, it looks like we're going to be... It looks like... Oh my gosh, I got the hiccups. It looks like we might see Skyloft again.
Yeah, maybe we will. Like, maybe an old, like... Like, maybe there's still people living up there, maybe not. Huh.
I don't know. But one thing I definitely want to see in Breath of the Wild 2 is please give it an organized story and characters again. It kind of defeats the purpose of the original game, but the original game is poopy.
It's not poopy, it's awesome. If Breath of the
It's
Wild
dog
is poopy,
water compared to the other Zelda games.
If Breath of the Wild is dog water, then dog water must be the most delicious, yummy water there is, because I love it.
Well, you would know, because you own a dog.
Yes, and Monica, aka Nintendrawer, she calls me dog water on a regular basis. That's like her nickname
By the
for me.
way, guys, disclaimer, I love dogs. I took care of 2 of them when I was still living with my parents. By the way, that's why my audio is different. I'm recording from an apartment.
But yeah, so Breath of the Wild 2, like, I think the idea of starting on the ground and then going to explore things in the sky is just more exciting than starting in the sky and then going to the ground to explore. I think because it's like, whoa, the sky, what new places can I explore here?
Well, not only that, I want to see, I'm curious if we'll get to explore more underground areas, because you didn't really get to see a lot of caves in Breath of the Wild, did you?
Not really, now that I think about it. I mean, like, obviously, you go underground every time you go into a shrine, which I love the shrines, by the way. I know some people aren't as into those, but I love them.
The shrines are boring. They're repetitive.
They are not boring. They are amazing. They're little bite-sized... They're like in Mario Odyssey, when, like, you go inside a door and you get a little short room to platform around and...
At least the doors in Super Mario Odyssey look different.
True. The aesthetic is almost always the same. Light blue.
It's light blue, black cinder blocks, and lights. That's it.
It feels like another world. I think it's really cool. It's like you like most of the game you're running through these lush green grass environments with the blue sky, and it's beautiful and amazing. But then it's like you're on an alien planet almost. You go underground and it's like, whoa, it's all futuristic, but still like so mysterious. I feel like Indiana Jones.
No, you'd feel more like Indiana Jones if you're exploring actual ruins, which you do get to do somewhat in this game. There are some mazes, but they all look alike.
Well, I mean, I feel like I noticed as I've gotten older, like when I play Wind Waker HD in Breath of the Wild, when I go into dungeons, I feel like Indiana Jones, like opening treasure chests and stuff. I'm like, yeah,
well,
this is awesome. I'm exploring.
Not only that, you get a grappling hook that lets you swing across gaps, you know?
Yeah. But anyways, it sounded like you had something to say.
I was gonna say also, I want proper items to come back in Breath of the Wild 2.
You know, it's funny that everything that you want to see in Breath of the Wild 2, like, I feel like those are what a lot of people have said. A lot of people, even people who love Breath of the Wild, like me, have said that, like, yeah, this is a great breath of fresh air. It was really cool to, like go back to the basics and really revamp Zelda, but it would be nice to get traditional dungeons again, the old item progression, a few things from the older style of Zelda to come back, mixed in with the new style of Breath of the Wild.
I don't know. I feel like the new style of Breath of the Wild has hurt the games more than helped it.
I mean, hopefully Nintendo will listen to the feedback, because I mean, like when they made Twilight Princess, you could tell they listened to
Nintendo listening. That's a good one.
Hey, on occasion they do. Like I was gonna say, like for Twilight Princess,
they have this little thing called selective hearing.
Yes, for Paper Mario, they don't listen, or they do listen and they just don't care. But that's a whole other can of worms.
It is a can of worms that's like 10 feet high.
You, me, and the other Ask Mario crew, we've discussed Paper Mario so much. It's like,
please, remaster, thousand your door.
Yeah, that's the voice of. That sounds like an incredibly smart, handsome, intelligent man that you just mimicked right there. I like it. Who is he?
Hey, it's like listening to a mirror.
Yeah, like you can tell, like they made Twilight Princess so dark because of the backlash that came from Wind Waker when that first came out. Because people were like, "Oh, looks like a baby game." So Nintendo was probably like, "Okay, all right, we'll make it dark like Ocarina and Majora again. Don't worry, we hear you."
Yeah, and I'm glad that Ganon is returning in some form. I just hope that corpse gets renewed somewhat, because I don't know if I want to play against. I don't know if I want to fight against a mummy.
Yeah, I mean, like they always do something unexpected. Like even like without spoiling anything, I will say the form of Calamity Ganon that you fight in Breath of the Wild, the first form at least, was pretty freaking awesome. It did look pretty cool.
Not really.
What?
Not really, because it's basically the same boss over and over. It's not. It doesn't bring anything new to the table because it mixes in all the other ones.
God, I really want to talk about this. Okay, you know what? Spoiler section. But he's a big fighter. It's so cool. Oops, I gotta bleep that swear word because I don't swear on my channel.
Language, James.
But he's a big spider. Creepy spider thing, and he's like also like a guardian. How is that not new? It's so cool. I love it.
Because it's the same. It wouldn't be a problem if it wasn't the same boss we've seen with the other Ganons in the other divine beasts. Like it's the same thing over and over. It's literally an amalgamation of the other Ganons you gotta fight.
I guess so. Like, yeah. I
it's
suppose
so original in its unoriginality.
It didn't, I guess, either I didn't notice or it just didn't bother me because I was just, I guess, like, the thing is, like, the issues that I have with...
I'm sorry.
Oh, sorry,
I gotta bring this up, too. When has Ganon ever been a spider? He's always been a pig, or a boar. Or a large, intimidating Gerudo king, but, like, when has he ever been a spider? The only time a spider has ever been, like, the main antagonist of a Zelda game is in Oracle of Ages.
I mean, we got to see Bowser as a cat in Super Mario 3D World.
Yes, but he still looked like Bowser.
It's just, switching things up a bit. That was the thing about Breath of the Wild, it really switched things up, and, I mean, I and a lot of people thought it was welcome. Obviously not for you.
Obviously not for me. Especially when he had a human-esque face, and it made me think of what could have been, and it was even more infuriating because of that.
I will say, like, the first phase of that boss fight is definitely better than the second phase. In the second phase, I feel like it could have been cool, but it was, like, way too easy, and...
Yeah, you could tell that. You could tell for the final boss battle they were focusing more on visuals and less on the actual gameplay. And even then, the visuals were so lackluster. Oh no, he's shooting lasers off into the distance that affect literally nothing. It only affects the immediate area you fight him in. Where's the explosions? Where's the carnage? Where's the actual fight?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the rest of the game is like so good that honestly, like I'm willing to give it a pass. Like the last
I just feel like that.
The last impression is important, but I don't know.
I feel
The
like
rest is so
Nintendo
good,
should
I don't
have.
mind.
I feel like Nintendo should have focused less on the world building aspect and more on the actual, world itself. Like
You mean like the characters?
right, like the lore, the characters. Just they built a big world, but they didn't fill it with much other than landscape.
I mean, I will say, like, during my second half of my first playthrough of Breath of the Wild, I will say the magic definitely wore off a bit because the sense of discovery, it started to wear off a bit because I started finding like the same items again and again at the end of shrines and stuff, and it was still a lot of fun. But like when I remember I was exploring a certain part of Gerudo Desert, and I was like, yeah, this part here feels a little too empty. Like maybe they could have added a few extra things here. It just feels like it's like the rest of the world is so like there's so much stuff to find and do, and then this part it's like they didn't spend as much time on. I wish I could show the part on the map, but
I mean, you could probably do that in editing if you knew where it was.
And if I'm not lazy enough, not lazy enough. But yeah, like, would you say that like the world of Breath of the Wild felt too empty? Because I have heard people say that.
Oh yeah, it felt more like I said before with my Oasis analogy. It felt like a wasteland, a desert with very few oases.
Meanwhile, I'm sure, like for that new Sonic game that's coming out next year, I'm sure that'll be a benefit because since you can run through that big open world so quickly, it won't matter that a lot of it's empty. It's because you need enough free room to run fast, you know?
Exactly, and honestly, Sonic relies on having a big open area to run in, regardless. So it works for his gameplay, not so much for Zelda.
Yeah, well, I mean,
by the way, by the time you end up getting the final Divine Beast, the motorcycle, you're basically completed like most of the game already, so there's not much you can do with it except pull like very limiting motorcycle stunts, which by the way, it disappears after you fall for long enough.
The motorcycle disappears?
Yes, it doesn't even let you have a proper landing.
What? I don't remember that.
Yeah, after you fall like 50 feet, it disappears.
Huh. Yeah, I mean, I will say I didn't get a whole lot out of the Master Cycle. I'm not like a big motorcycle guy anyways. I think it was a cool idea, though, and it seems like a lot of people did get a kick out of it, so, you know.
Yeah, because it looks cool, and we've never seen Link with a motorcycle by that point, except for like Mario Kart 8, where Skyward Sword Link was brought in.
But yeah, so, like, what I love about Breath of the Wild, like, yeah, sure, Breath of the Wild does have, like, some problems, but the rest of the game is so good for me that it just doesn't, I'm willing to let those slide. They don't faze me as much. Whereas, like, with Skyward Sword, because, like, exploring the world feels so bland by comparison, it's just not as pleasant for me. It's
so funny you say that because we're like opposites in that regard. Because
we really
I'm willing to forgive a lot of Skyward Sword's quirks because I love the world and the characters they've built. You know.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it has one of the best incarnations of Zelda. She's like one of the cutest ones. Like in the way she interacts with Link.
She's definitely a cutie. Actually, now that you bring that up, since we're talking about it, which versions of Zelda, Link, and the recurring characters do you like the most?
Oh, you know what? That is a really good subject. This might be the last big subject we discuss because we're running out of time here. But I guess I've grown to really like Breath of the Wild Zelda because I think her story is. I think a lot of people... I can't personally relate with her story too much, but I'm sure a lot of people can with, like, you know, the pressure she's under and all that. And also, I really like her design, and even though her voice acting isn't always great, I do like her voice. Skyward Sword Zelda is also up there. And then, I guess those two are probably my favorites. I do like, if I played Spirit Tracks, I'm sure Spirit Tracks Zelda would be up there too, because I've just heard a lot of great things about her.
Okay. Yeah, that's a pretty good setup. As far as Zelda goes for me, visually speaking, I think the Zelda from A Link to the Past, A Link Between Worlds is actually one of my favorite Zelda's designs. As far as writing goes, A Link Between Worlds actually had a pretty charming behind the scenes look with their Zelda. That being said, though, I think my favorite Zelda has to be a tie between Skyward Sword and Wind Waker, because Tetra was actually one of my childhood crushes.
Oh, really? Huh.
Yeah. So yeah, I just loved the concept behind Tetra, and honestly, like, when I got into the game, it actually surprised me that she was Zelda, even though I've seen that trick pulled before with Sheik.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, they did pull that twice, I guess.
Honestly, I think it was because Tetra was introduced first as Tetra, and then she's Zelda. But she's still Tetra on the inside. As you can see in the ending, when she's floating in the ocean with Link, and she's Tetra again.
Yeah, no, it's funny, it's almost like Tetra is like the precursor to Midna, because she's like, Tetra isn't like your sidekick, like Midna, but she's like really snarky and always giving Link crap and giving him a hard time. But then,
she's a pirate.
Yeah, but then by the end, like, they're total besties and they're really close.
Yeah, and Tetra and Link are cute together.
Oh yeah, what about versions of Link? It's funny, I remember recently you and I were actually talking about which Links we think are the most attractive, and I think I said Breath of the Wild Link, or was it most attractive? We were talking about our favorite versions of Link, and you said Breath of the Wild Link is probably one of your least favorites.
So I wouldn't say that he's one of my least favorites. There's definitely worse Links out there. The CDI ones come to mind.
They don't count.
I know they don't count. That being said, though, I think the one from the first two Zelda games is probably the worst one, just because he's basically nothing. He's basically a character to play as because he didn't have a personality back then.
I mean, Link, like throughout like almost every game in the series, like, he is pretty much a blank slate because he's meant to be like the Link to the player, and you're supposed to like.
I understand that, but that being said, though, there's small hints. There's always these little hints to the character that each Link portrays. For one, like in Twilight Princess, for example, you can see that this Link is very good with animals since he was raised as a farmhand.
Mm-hmm.
Compared to like his Ocarina of Time variant, where he has like a very like an infamous relationship with cuckoos.
Wait, no, wasn't Link to the Past the first game to introduce the Kuko murder squad thing?
Yeah, it was. But that being said, though, it was one of those things where it was more in the control of the player. But that being said, you could tell that Link is still like for example, some of the things you learn about Link in Majora's Mask, for example, is that he doesn't fully understand grown-up things like marriage or delivering letters to loved ones, but he has grown up a bit. And you actually do see Link smile a little bit when he thinks that he's finally defeated Ganon and he's relieved to escape with Zelda. But also, there's actually this hidden thing with Malon in Lon Lon Ranch that you can totally miss.
Oh, what's that?
So, if Link actually goes to Lon Lon Ranch before he's rescued Epona and freed the ranch at night, he can see Malon singing out in the ranch like she used to, and if he plays Epona's song next to her, she'll be shocked that he knew the song in the first place. It's almost like Link is trying to tell her, "Hey, it's me, the fairy boy. I need you. Do you remember me?"
Yeah, that doesn't surprise. I can't believe I didn't know about that.
Yeah, it's one of those easily missable Easter eggs.
Yeah, because even though I'm not a huge fan of Ocarina of Time, I have played a lot of it, and I have beat it.
And honestly, just the impact that the Hero of Time had on the entire series is probably one of the reasons why he's one of my all-time favorite Links.
I mean, I guess talking about our favorite Links and least favorite Links, we also have to, like, make sure we put aside the quality of the games that they come from. Just talking about the Links themselves,
I know. I'm talking about, like, see, you have to have an eye to see those little details, especially when you see, like, you know, some of the things that the game tells you through subtext.
I guess, like, putting aside the quality, like, since Breath of the Wild is one of my favorites, I could say Breath of the Wild Link is my favorite, but I mean, like, putting aside how much I love the game itself, he is pretty, like, what do we know about Breath of the Wild Link? He loves to eat, and he stays quiet because he doesn't want to burden, he wants to keep all the pain inside because he doesn't want to, because it's a huge responsibility.
Yeah, like, the only other thing we know about him is that he has a father who's a knight. That's probably how he got into the Royal Guard in the first place.
By the way, my jaw hit the ground when I heard that. I was like, what? Father?
I mean, Link being related to knights is nothing new. We've seen it in A Link to the Past with his uncle.
But I mean, like, the fact that Zelda mentioned that he has a father, I was like, what? Parents? What? Are we finally going to meet? And of course, we don't meet his parents, but still, I was like,
we
what?
We actually do see, like, concept art for it in the Breath of the Wild art books. He not only has a father, but a sister too.
But then I would have to say, like, probably, even though I have kind of mixed thoughts on Skyward Sword, Skyward Sword Link, like, he's pretty basic too, but he does, like, you've told me this.
I'd argue that Skyward Sword has one of the most probably emotive Links that I've ever seen, next to Twilight Princess and Wind Waker.
Really? You think Twilight Princess Link has more expressions than Skyward Sword Link?
It's like you can see some of the things through his eyes almost, because some of the expressions he has, you can see how tender and gentle he is when he's in Ordon Village and seeing all of his friends. And you can also see how intense his fury is when he sees King Bulbin riding off with Colin after he kidnaps him. Like, you can just that range of emotion. You can even see Link be relieved when Midna reveals her true form, and he's just glad that she's okay. But also him running after her when she closes the Mirror of Twilight behind her and breaks it.
Oh, man. Okay, yeah, we're in full spoiler territory at this point.
I know.
I gotta make sure to put a spoiler warning.
Look, the games are decades old. The games are several years old. I can talk about this freely.
But I just remember in Skyward Sword, like, there's this one really important cutscene a little over halfway through the game where there's just one shot where, like, Zelda is telling Link some really important, like shocking news about her and their destinies, and he's just wide-eyed, just looking at her, just like, oh? And I just remember that expression, like, being really funny, because...
Yeah, it became a meme.
Did it? Oh, that doesn't surprise me at all. But yeah, I think maybe my two or three favorites are probably, even though there's not a lot to him, I do like Breath of the Wild Link, partially because, like, all the costumes all the clothes he gets to wear, and then I think the most personality probably goes to Wind Waker Link.
Honestly, like, even with all the costumes that Breath of the Wild Link gets to wear, it doesn't feel like Link, you know? Because you actually have to work and beat every shrine in the game to get a proper green tunic, and by that point, what's the point?
I mean, I like the Champion's tunic better anyways. Like, the fact that Link's default costume, like his costume on the box art, or his outfit on the box art, is blue instead of green, that alone shows how different this Zelda game was. They're like, no, we're switching things up. You're not playing a green man, you're playing a blue man.
And like, a man that's right-handed and not left-handed.
Yeah, oh yeah, that too. Man. Whew, Breath of the Wild, wow. It was a big change. Whew.
With, like, Twilight Princess on the Wii version, you can understand that they had to flip the game because most people are right-handed with the Wii remote. And in Skyward Sword, you understand the same reason, but with Breath of the Wild, there's no excuse.
Yeah, I wonder if every Link going forward is going to be right-handed.
Link should be left-handed, like, all the time. It's very, like, it's an important facet of his character because Miyamoto likes making left-handed characters.
Yeah, but I mean, like, keep in mind, they're also different characters, technically, if they're all
I know every Link is a different person. That has already been established.
I mean, I don't think I honestly don't mind too much either way. It's like maybe like I'm right-handed, so maybe there's a part of me that feels comfort in seeing a Link who's also
I'm right-handed. I'm right-handed too, and I still want Link to be left-handed.
I'm not gonna start an angry mob if all the Links going forward are left-handed. There are far worse issues to get mad about.
I know, but it's those tiny things, because I have an eye for these things, and I need them to be right. I need them to be just right.
You're so passionate about which hand Link uses.
I'm passionate about the tiny details, the little things, okay? Breath of the Wild by itself, it's a good game. I enjoyed it when I played it through the first time, but it was boring with all the little things they didn't do.
Oh yeah, speaking of, aside from what we've already talked about, what you want to see in Breath of the Wild 2, are there any other things you'd like to see in Breath of the Wild 2? Because there's one thing I want to discuss quickly. Arlo recently made a video talking about how he thinks maybe they'll pull a Paper Mario the Thousand Year Door and give you short sections where you play as Zelda, who's trapped underground, and she's maybe trying to escape Ganon underground, or she's trying to do some other quests down there, while Link is up in the sky and up and on the surface.
I wouldn't count on it. Knowing Nintendo, they go out of their way to not let us play as actual Zelda. Even in, like, Spirit Tracks, where you can play as Zelda, it's not Zelda, it's Zelda in a Phantom.
I would love to get to play as Zelda in a mainline game. I think it would just be like nowadays. Like sometimes when I get the option to choose between a boy or a girl, sometimes I choose to play as a girl because it's like, yeah. I mean, growing up, I always played as dudes, so it's nice to switch it up.
Well, not to mention sometimes the female protagonist is more appealing than the male ones. You see this all the time in Pokemon, for instance.
Like the character designs are better.
Yeah, the character designs are usually better for the females.
But yeah. So what else would you like to see in Breath of the Wild 2?
Well, I definitely want to see more variety in what you're allowed to do because I want proper items to come back. I want dungeons to come back. We've established that. You know what? I want Link to be able to dive underwater.
Oh,
because you can't do that in Breath of the Wild.
Oh,
there was no reason. Like, Link had iron boots in Twilight Princess and Ocarina of Time that allowed him to do that. You can tell that the modelers for the game created environments under the water, but I don't see why, like, Link not being able to dive would be, like, such an oversight, you know?
I mean, I honestly didn't mind that there weren't any underwater sections because, like, I know
the water dungeons in Zelda are infamous. I remember.
Like, I don't usually hate them too much. Like, the one in A Link Between Worlds I thought was fine. I didn't mind too much. Like, in Donkey Kong Country Returns, there were no underwater levels. And, I mean, when they brought them back for Tropical Freeze, they were amazing. So, I mean, if they can bring them back and do them right, then, yeah, I'm all for that. I'm just imagining I have a phobia. I have, like, a big fear of large underwater creatures, especially in video games. So if I'm just imagining having to do that in a big like in Lake Hylia in Twilight Princess.
You know,
thank God,
something else I'd love to see.
Creatures. What?
I don't know if they went extinct, but I'd love to see the Loftwings come back.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, it looks like in the new game you're gonna be flying with your
I know, flying with the paraglider, but at least I want to see them referenced somewhere. I want more variety with the enemies, dang it! I want more variety with the creatures!
Oh yeah, I wonder what enemies they're gonna have you fighting. Imagine if like you're flying with the paraglider and then you have to shoot arrows at enemies while you're flying up in the sky. That would be cool.
Yeah. Oh,
Sky
and
combat.
I want proper bosses to come back. Bosses that are unique and rely on items to defeat them.
I mean, you did need items to defeat him in Breath of the Wild, but I mean,
Well, yes, but I mean, yeah, I don't expect Link to like fight. I don't expect Link to fight Calamity Ganon with his bare fists, but that's beside the point. I want more variety with the items. I don't want to go with the same sword, spear, hammer combo, or I don't want to over rely on bows. Give me boomerangs that are actual boomerangs instead of variants of swords. Give Link the hook shot, dang it!
Oh yeah, they did take the hook shot out of Breath of the Wild. I mean, I didn't mind personally, but I mean, if they can bring it back and like, imagine if you could like use the hook shot and also use it to like swing on things. And imagine
that was an actual concept they were going to bring in, but they left it out because it apparently made things too easy.
I mean, like, I'm just imagining like, I mean, the physics system in Breath of the Wild is fantastic as far as I can tell. So I mean, if they bring back other classic items and let you play with them with the new physics engine, like imagine the things you could do. Like that
Right,
could be really
like
cool.
I'm optimistic, but I'm also cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, something tells me there is a chance that this new game will also not be your cup of tea. Like, especially if they don't give you cutscenes in linear order like the other games. Because I did love discovering cutscenes in Breath of the Wild, but and playing them out of order was kind of cool because it kept the mystery going. But then playing them. But I also do kind of miss the traditional style where it's all linear in that sense.
Well, not to mention, like, even with cutscenes, you don't get to experience much. I want to actually be an active part of the story, you know? Even with Twilight Princess, the cutscenes they had weren't too long. They were pleasantly short enough to help set the tone, and then you just get thrown in.
And plus, like, all the cutscenes in Breath of the Wild, like, the majority of them were about events that took place 100 years ago.
Exactly.
So,
I want more things in the moment. Stop looking back. Make the world you build in now better rather than the world you built in 100 years ago.
well, you know, I mean, unless they do another thing where, like, I don't see why they would have, in this next game, they'd have show you events that take place in the past. But then again, maybe they'll do that again.
I'm almost
we'll
confident they'll do that again because Ganondorf.
I mean, some people think this new game might actually take place in the past. There might be time travel or something. I really don't know.
You never know with Zelda.
Yeah, it's kind of the beauty and also the frustration of the series. Is like sometimes they get so experimental with their games that for some people it's like, oh, this is great. And then for somebody else it's like, no, this is not what I like. Ugh.
Yeah, the problem with Nintendo is they don't understand the concept of if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's really like you and I, we're not video game creators, so we don't know what it's like to be in their shoes.
I'd like to be a video game creator. I have plenty of ideas for it.
Knowing when to experiment and try new things and when to keep things the same, it's not always easy to tell. So sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it really does depend. There's no one like for sure right path to take. So, but honestly, like even with some Zelda games I'm not a big fan of, I still respect them. Like Majora's Mask, like you love that game, and I don't really care it. I don't care for it, but I still do respect it a lot. I think there are some great ideas in it, and yeah,
I love Zelda so much because it's what inspired me to start creating in the first place. It's what pushed me to become an artist to begin with.
Wow. It's really that big of a deal? Wow.
It is that big of a deal to me because, you know, some of those original characters I showed, they were
like
inspired in some way by Zelda characters. Peter, for example, takes some influence from Link in his A Link to the Past and Twilight Princess incarnations. Obviously, he's not a sword wielder. He's very much a brawler, but that influence is still there.
Yeah, also the fact that he has a fairy with him.
Well, that's a whole other lore thing. That's kind of a thing with his family. All of his family has a fairy companion.
Yeah, that's you definitely got that from Zelda. I can tell.
Oh yeah, but I'm gonna do my own thing with it, I swear.
But then again, I suppose Zelda they probably took that from Peter Pan. Now that I've definitely thought about this before.
Like Miyamoto confirmed that himself. Link definitely takes a lot of inspiration from Peter Pan.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that's all the time we have for right now. But yeah, Jason, thank you very much for coming on the channel and talking about Zelda for an hour. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you for having me. It's and I hope you guys will tolerate my obviously not modern tastes.
Nah, dude. It's again, like I've made this point before, but like nobody really, for the most part, we don't choose how we feel about a lot of things. A lot of things we just feel how we feel. Like when it comes down to taste, you don't choose to dislike Breath of the Wild, and I don't choose to dislike Majora's Mask. It's just how we feel, and sometimes you just can't help that, you know.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, you know? I'm just glad that we can, still be friends, and I'm glad that I'm not fired for having a different opinion.
Yeah, luckily, like, Slickframe is an exaggerated, more childish version of the real me.
Yeah, like, one of these days, whenever I get my own projects going, I'm definitely going to do, like, an exaggerated version of my own personality to create a character. Obviously, it's not going to 100% reflect who I am, but I'm definitely going to go with a slightly more childish version of myself, but more in the sense that, I'm a little too innocent, and I get scared easily, that sort of thing.
Wow. Huh. Okay. All right. Well, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, if I ever get that project off the ground.
Yeah, after you get a whole bunch of artwork done for me for Ask Mario.
Yeah. Once I have a little more free time, now that I have these skills, I'm gonna start making stuff for myself. I gotta create my assets.
All right. So I guess we're gonna get going now. Again, check the links below if you want to see any more of any of Jason's work. Thank you all for listening. Please, in the comments below, tell us what is your favorite Zelda game, what's your least favorite Zelda game, and who are your favorite Links and Zeldas throughout the entire series.
Just tell us who your favorite characters are, really.
Yeah, just go ahead and share anything you want to about your takes on the Zelda series. Let's discuss it in the comments below. Now, be friendly. Let's be nice to each other. Let's not be jerks. Let's just have a good time and talk about Zelda in the comments section.
Yeah, even though I made fun of James a little bit, obviously it's mostly in jest. We still like each other.
Yeah, emphasis on mostly. There's that little tiny bit that's not. All right, cool. All right, well, we're going to get going now, but we'll talk to you guys later, and look forward to seeing some of Jason's artwork appearing on Ask Mario sometime in the future.
And yes, it will be appearing sometime in the future.
Sometime in the future. All right, well, again, thank you, Jason, and we will talk to you guys later.
Have a good one, and have a happy holiday.
Happy holidays.